Okay, so let's just talk. I'm going to back up a step. Built into Canvas, if you've been watching the provost recent messages, the idea of obviously of alternative testing and doing maybe more low stakes quizzes and so forth. But if the decision is that it's still best to maybe use Canvas quizzes, just want to double check that there's certain things built into Canvas that can kind of help be a detriment for students who might choose to collaborate when they're taking a test. One is, I don't know how many folks have used question groups. I can create groups of questions either right within a Canvas quiz, or I can create question banks and then pull question groups from those. And the idea of that is I can create a group of questions, let's say that had 20 questions. And then for the group, I can say randomly to each student out of these 20, show 5 questions. So there's a fairly different test for each student who's taking the exam. So that can be one way to kind of mix things up and make it a little bit more challenging if students did want to kind of collaborate when they're taking a test. You can also, there's a checkbox when you're setting up the settings on your Canvas quiz. We can say shuffle the answers basically for multiple choice questions. So if I shuffle it, then my answer B, which would be correct for Bob Wilson, might be answer C, so that it makes it, I can't, if I'm just collaborating with the student and saying, hey, what'd you get for question one? Just knowing they got C wouldn't help me because it's shuffled up the answers a little bit. Makes it a little more interesting sometimes when you're going then into SpeedGrader afterwards to double check and see, instead of just going down the line and saying, well, everybody should have answered B, you'd have to go through and double check that. You're looking not just for A or B, but for the actual real answers. You can see for this student, B was correct, and for this student, C was correct. But setting a time limit on an exam, a reasonable time limit, where if a student literally had to go out and look everything up online, they probably wouldn't be able to finish the exam in time. But if they've done a reasonable amount of study and so forth, that within that time limit, they should be able to finish the exam reasonably. Um, by default, we know Canvas is set to, the default is 1 attempt per student per quiz. Um, I'm not sure if allow multiple attempts would apply in this scenario in terms of making it more secure, but that is an option to allow additional attempts for a student. Also, if let's say if you're working with a student and they encounter a concern right in the middle of a quiz, in Canvas, if you're working with that student and they're still taking the quiz, under moderate quiz, you can go to that student and let's say extend their time by 10 minutes. Let's say you work with them and they encountered something with their internet or something else that got in their way, and you're having a conversation or chat or an email or on the phone. If in the middle of that attempt, you could go ahead and give them a few more minutes if you wanted to. And then obviously, if you've got a window of time, which we usually do with quizzes and Canvas, one to allow, especially now with COVID, our students on different schedules, or they're working different schedules, where before, yeah, I was available to come to a 10 a.m. class on Thursday, but right now, maybe I've now picked up an extra job because I've gone home, or maybe I'm helping to take care of a sick family member, or perhaps I myself am not feeling well, or I'm just in a different time zone. So normally we're suggesting that you have like a window of opportunity, maybe for 2 or 3 days when students could take the quiz. Once they start the quiz, it's a time quiz, and they finish in an hour, or 2 hours, or whatever that time limit might be. But then the default in Canvas is that after a student takes a quiz, the default is they can see their score. They can't see anything else about the quiz. And if you wanted to, you could choose in the grade book, if you hid that column for the quiz and hid the scores in that column, they wouldn't even see their score if you chose not to show them their score right after they took their quiz. But you can control in terms of when after that you might allow them to see, well, what were the questions on the exam and how did they answer? And you could then control whether or not, and would you want to allow them to see their correct answers or not? So you can kind of control at least a student who takes a quiz early, that they can't easily copy and paste and then maybe send it on to another student and share. So there's some of that built in for Canvas. Um, so those are some of the main ways you can require an access code, basically a password that students would need to know, that you would find a way to communicate to them so that they couldn't come in early or not. And you can also use between your due dates, and on a quiz you can set an available from and until date. If the from date hasn't occurred, a student can't take the quiz yet. And if the until date occurs, if they click on it, they could no longer take the quiz. So there are a number of different features built into Canvas that for some instructors, this might meet their need. And especially, I don't know if anybody went to Jennifer Newwald's presentation about a week and a half ago. She talked about how she treats hers as an open book test. She uses these features built into Canvas, and she's found in general those are meeting her needs, and she's not using any proctoring software. So just want to make sure that you know that that's an option. If you think this might meet your needs, then maybe this might be the way to go.